Hello out there, and today we have another installment of the series that I like to call Classics Uncovered. And this is a series of videos where I bring back a discontinued knife, give it some of the recognition that I think it deserves, and give it a little bit of time in the sun to maybe expose some people to this model that haven't really seen it before. And today we have the Spyderco Des Horn, and this is a knife that has been discontinued for probably about, I don't know, 5 years. So it really isn't that old, but it is a knife that I think even when it came out, it wasn't a particularly popular one, but it does have a lot going for it. And it's a knife that I personally have always really liked. And while I've had this knife on the channel before for a few different things, you know, for discontinued videos or gent carry kind of videos or collection videos, I don't think I've ever done like a full review or really given it its full focus. So that's what we're going to do today. It's just show some of the characteristics, some of the things about the knife that I really like. And yeah, maybe, just maybe, one of you watching will really get the itch to try to track one of these down. And I'll let you know, how possible that is and how easy they are to come by, if they are easy to come by. But one of the things that drew me to the knife at first, and we'll get to the physical characteristics in just a second, but one of the big draws when I was getting into Spyderco was the price. Because Spyderco had the Delicas and they had the Centifontes and the Tenaciouses, and those were in like the 60s to $50 to $40 price range back then. But once you bumped up into that second level of pricing, the Des Horn was one of the cheapest knives they had, right around 120 bucks. Maybe a little bit less on Amazon. I saw it like around 107, 109 a couple times, you know? My wife ended up getting this for me for Christmas one year, which was awesome. But yeah, I wanted to get into like the nicer Spydercos, and so, something a little bit cheaper was going to go to the top of my list, and I just really liked the symmetry of this knife. If you take a look at it, you can see, if you take a look at it from the pivot, from the tip to tip, it is a pretty symmetrical design. And so that just appealed to me a lot, in just a lot of ways. You have the lines that start, on the flat and then sort of go all the way through to the scale. So yeah, it just had a lot going for it in terms of looks and manufacturing. This is a Taichung, Taiwan manufactured knife, which back then, even then, in my opinion, I think was the place where Spyderco was making their most refined knives, let's say. And still to this day, I mean, they make great stuff in the USA, they make great stuff everywhere, but I think the most refined stuff is coming out of Taiwan still, and it was back then. So what we have was a blade of S30V, flat ground, extremely pointy, as you can see here. And then there were G10 handle scales with a pretty high polish on them. And we have liners that are nested and a liner lock. And you can see those nested liners on the other side. Barely see them because they're very thin and they're very nested. And yeah, so it's a very simple knife. There's not much else to talk about. But it's just executed pretty darn well. So let's start and take you all the way through it. So taking a look at the blade, I mean, this sort of has that letter opener kind of feel to it, where I don't think for a second you should be confused into thinking that this is going to be a great like box cutter. Sure, it'll be great for a few boxes, but this isn't going to be that durable kind of EDC. It's more of a lightweight, small purpose, quick task kind of knife. Gent carry certainly as well. But it's definitely got a nice, attractive shape to the blade. I really like the stamping that they have. I've never minded the Taichung Taiwan stamping, but more than anything, I just think the Des Horn like logo, or the name, since it's the designer, I just think it really fits with the classiness of the look of the knife. So yeah, I like that. I really like the way this machining is done on the flat in order to like create that design that, like I said, continues all the way into the scale. The opening hole is very easy to access, so spider flicking it right-handed isn't going to happen, but I'm lefty, so I can do that. But flicking it right-handed is very easy. The D10 isn't super strong, so it's easy to push out. So yeah, nice stuff there. As we continue to move on back, we have the G10 handle scales, and these are polished. So a little bit maybe on the slick side, but it isn't anything that really slides around too bad in the hand. I'll show the ergonomics in just a second. It does have a really nice look to it though. I mean, as far as G10, the look of the G10, it's very good. We have this one position pocket clip. It is tip down carry, so that really again sort of speaks to the philosophy of the use here being something that is just going to be a gent piece, maybe a jacket pocket, maybe you take the darn clip off all the way. You know, relatively deep carry though, so I mean it does have that going for it. But you know, it's not going to be tip up. You take a look at the way the handle is designed. I mean, where would you fit that clip? It'd be pretty low. It would sort of disrupt, I think, the look of the knife as well. So the where it is, I don't really have a problem with. And then as we continue to move on back, we're going to flip over and take a look at the backspacer. The backspacer is G10 as well. You can certainly see in the light, you know, where the pieces of G10 end and that backspacer begins. But the finishing job here is pretty nice. I mean, there's no gaps. Again, you can see that transition from the scale to the spacer, but I mean, it's done well in a way that you feel like you're getting that high-end kind of value, at least for a production knife, you know. So yeah, definitely a good job there. And then taking a look, here is the liner lock mechanism. We're running on bronze washers as well. The lockup on this knife is really solid. Really solid. It's just simple. Engage. Engage. You know, and you just see a lock engage like that. And especially on a knife that isn't supposed to be a super durable, overbuilt knife. And it just makes you feel good that that it engages so well. I mean, you know that lockup is going to be great. And then the shutting aspect, it drops shut real nicely. So yeah, it's a pretty darn cool knife, guys. And I think one of the big selling points, if you are a weight person and you are looking for a knife that is super light, this one is competitive with just about everything. So let's bring out the scale, and I'll do some size comparisons as well, because I guess I might have failed to demonstrate the size of the knife at the beginning. But starting with the Centofonte 3, let's see if we, maybe a little bit of glare here. So 2.57, hopefully you can see that. But let's just get the Des Horn on there, and that is 1.94, if you're seeing that. 1.94 ounces. So it really doesn't weigh much at all. So you take a look, and I just dropped one of the important knives that I want to compare. But there's the CRKT Pete from this year, another nice little gent piece, 2.4 ounces. The bug out's going to come in at 1.98. You know, the CRKT Ripple in carbon fiber is going to be 2.43. CRKT CEO, which is another gent piece, 2.17. There aren't very many things out there that are going to be, you know, sub 2 ounces. One of them is the CRKT Inara 1.84, and I actually picked this knife up because of the resemblance that it had to the Des Horn, just in those lines. This is a very inferior knife compared to the Des Horn, in my opinion. Very much cheaper as well, but yeah, it is a little bit on the lighter side. We take a look at the Benchmade 770, 1.76 ounces. But when we line them up, let's take a look at the size comparisons here. You'll be able to see just how different they are as well. Let's line up the tips. And we've got about 3/4 of an inch total difference in overall length here. So, you know, only 1/10 of an ounce, maybe a little bit more different in size. So that's pretty darn good. The Benchmade mini grip, which weighs a significant amount more, has a shorter cutting edge, shorter overall length, weighs more. So and no one's going to call the mini grip a heavy knife. So the point here is just that the Des Horn, just for what it is, being G10, very, very thin liners, not having a lot of weight on it at all, just it really fits that purpose of a very sleek and sophisticated gents piece. Now, is it available? Is it a knife that, you could pick up? Here's what I think about this knife. I think that it's not in demand at all. I don't think that anybody's looking for them. I don't think that anybody was looking for them when they were out and in production, to be honest. But the problem with that is that just means that there aren't very many for sale. And so the ones that I've seen for sale in the past few months have all been priced at around the $200 plus mark. I don't think they're selling at that price point though. So I think eventually, if you keep your eye out, you find someone who's trying to actually move one of these, you'll be able to get it at a decent price if they really want to move it, just because I don't think you're going to have much competition trying to get it, if that makes sense. Other knives from this era, let's say like the Spyderco Junior, if you guys remember that one, that's one that was, priced right around $100, maybe a little bit less when it came out. And just because of the demand for it has really been like pushed up. There's not that much demand, but there's way less supply. And so, when they do become available, they do get bid on, or someone does make a pretty high price offer, depending on where you're purchasing it. And, those can go for twice, even like almost 3 times what they were listed as. This knife, though, I don't really think it's going at all. So if you just keep your eye out long enough, maybe one will pop up at a decent price and you won't have any competition to try to get it. So that's my take, guys. That is this classic uncovered, the Spyderco Des Horn, really sweet gent piece that is long discontinued, but definitely not forgotten about. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. I really appreciate you watching. Take care and have a good one.